Each Other is a podcast about the importance of human interaction. It provides reminders that we are not intended to live in isolation. Human beings need each other. The things about another that pisses you off and the things that take you over the moon are all opportunities to see through another's eyes, recognize their intrinsic value, and then look more deeply within ourselves to find the love that's always there. Ooh, this episode of We Need Each Other. I'm excited. We have with us Paul Harrison, who is a television producer who launched Pigeon Inc., a full-service production company, in 2015. Pigeon delivers messages from the front lines, telling true stories that entertain, educate, and uplift with one focus: to serve the underserved communities that have long been unrepresented in media. Pigeon is proud of its history in doing just that, with 5 NAACP nominations and 3 wins. Pigeon just completed its work on the Biden-Harris campaign in supporting the LGBTQ Biden coalition, where Paul served as a kitchen cabinet member. I don't know exactly what that means. You'll have to explain, Paul. Paul and Pigeon have since partnered up with producers Matt Rosenfield and Morgan Warner. Both helped produce the last 60 episodes of the award-winning series Iyanla Fix My Life for OWN. They have since signed development deals with Angelica Ross, star of Pose and American Horror Story, as well as business owner Melba Wilson from the world-famous Melbas of Harlem. Paul is a stepfather and former foster parent. Paul lives in Palm Springs with his wife, Emily, their dog, Bridget, and their 2 cats, Sammy Davis Jr. and David Bowie. So welcome, Paul.
Thank you for having me, Francesca.
I am beyond delighted to have you, and I'm going to tell you why. Because over these last several months, well, I'm going to back up. I have lived in diverse environments my entire life, except for the 4 years of college where I went to a historically black university. But always, in school and in corporate America, in my life, I've been in very diverse environments and have very close white friends. And I am in a period right now over these last several months where white people are simply a disappointment to me. And it's not their fault. It's that they can't see what they can't see, and they don't know what they don't know, but they're not willing to listen to find out. And I'm excited and happy to have you on this episode because I'm very proud of who you are, Paul. The things that I know about you, I don't know an awful lot about you, but the way that I know, I mean, just from the introduction of Pigeon and the way that I know that you walk in the world and some of the wonderful things that you've done for people of color, I'm just excited to have you here.
Oh, and I'm thrilled to be here as well. I'm a big fan, and I must thank you for partaking in a project that I've been working on with Angelica Ross last week. Thank you for joining the Turning Point and sharing your wisdom with our viewers. It was so much fun. We will have to do it again.
Yes. But here's one of the things that I know about Paul, is that Paul had a wife who was Latinx, as we refer to it now.
She still is.
She still is. It's his ex-wife.
This is
she
true.
Still is.
We still talk.
Right. Yes, right. And adopted her son.
I never adopted any of the children.
Okay.
I just
You
raised
did.
them
Okay.
as my stepchildren. They all called me Pablo. In the house, Dad was a bad name, so they never called me Dad. Dad was not a nice guy, but they called me Pablo, and I was pleased to raise them, as well as we brought on a foster son, one of my son's best friends from elementary school, whose foster home fell apart. So we had a pretty diverse house, and I was young. I became a stepdad at 21.
Wow.
The oldest was 11.
So Tell me a little bit about your upbringing that created this human being that had that much love and compassion for other cultures.
Well, I grew up in a both my parents. I'm a white guy, and my parents are as white people as well. So I grew up in a white household that was very conservative, Republican, and not educated on topics that were facing us through as a child, through the 70s especially. In the 80s. They just kind of lived in their bubble in suburbia. But I was diagnosed at a young age with a disability in reading comprehension and severe dyslexia. So I had to go to a specialized school in the Bay Area that was far away. And as we all know, disabilities do not discriminate. So I did not get to go to the private schools that my brother and sister went to. I went to a more diverse school that handled folks kids who had different forms of disabilities and different degrees. Again, with my parents' kind of lack of education, I had a disability that could have, been easily kind of course corrected and dealt with in the school system, but they were so overly concerned. They put me in a classroom where, half of my classmates were nonverbal and had severe disabilities, and from all cultures, all worlds. These became my peers, the people I loved and cared for, and came to my birthday parties, and I went to theirs. And these are my friends, and I didn't really ever feel like I belonged back in the neighborhood when I went to the neighborhood, because they would label me as handicapped and call me names and treat me as soft, and because I was very kind of an effeminate young man. Because I have a heart and shared it when I wanted to share it, and that was considered kind of weak in the park growing up. So I've always felt that that everyone counts, and I've been a bit more hypersensitive, I guess, in seeing when someone is dismissed and being in the room when that happens, or just kind of feeling that for them. I guess maybe I'm a little bit of an empath in that way, where I feel what I assume they're feeling. So I've always kind of carried that with me. Now I've progressed and expanded, and have since, have friends in all sorts of different communities, where members of my family have not. I grew up in the same house, had some of the same experiences, but I still have, white family who don't step out and try to meet new people or have other experiences. They're very, I guess, comfortable in their environments. And so I share with you the disappointment in my community, as I also have witnessed the lack of desire to grow through this, and I do feel and sense in my conversations a fear almost of a change that's taking place that could upset the status quo for many comfortable people.
What do they think what is it, in your opinion, that they think is going to happen?
I don't know, because for most it's already happened. Everyone has their struggles, and classes have shifted. I think it is more of a pride, that they don't want to. It's something that's been really poured into the white community for so long. Of this of this self-worth and literal ownership. Oh my God, to use that word, they just feel a sense of and I'm not saying everybody,
no,
because I have some dear friends who are wide awake and participate, but I have several who just don't get it, and there's no time right now to catch up. You either get it or you don't get it.
I keep saying, do you not understand that we are in crisis?
Yep.
Your eyes have been opened to it. And it's not, it's not just what happens with the police system. It's every system that exists in this country. We're in crisis, and they're killing us.
Yep. True. I'm sorry, my cat escaped. I need to bring my cat back in the house.
Oh, okay.
Get in here.
So I'm curious. You brought your family, or your wife and children around your family when you were married?
I did try to foster those relationships, but it was not as receptive. I think that there was a big disappointment that I married a Latina and that she was previously married. Was also an issue for especially my mother, who was, very 50s Los Angeles, grew up in Eagle Rock in her little bubble. And for my father, there's always was a disconnect. Even when I was younger, like my father was rarely in the room when he was in the room. So when it came time to supporting my stepchildren, whether it's a sporting event or anything of that, they just ended up being a no-show. And I was okay with that, because I'd rather, have the positive energy around the children than, have someone who might be looking down or say something inappropriate, or, it's just always, how parents are.
Yes.
Sometimes they could say something that could throw the whole room, and you go, "Oh, Lordy, that's family talk." Why are you saying stuff like that out loud?
Did your children recognize that in them?
Some did.
And was it something that was talked about?
Not talked about as much. They may have overheard me on the phone having conversations with my parents of like, "Didn't see you." We were invited to, and sharing in the disappointment of not having them participate in what I considered their grandchildren at the time, because I was raising them as my children, just because they weren't the same color or came from the same class. There was definite a little bit of judgment and heat in wanting to participate, or I guess give any kind of stamp of approval of the life that I was leading. I think they were quite disappointed in my decisions. I was in love, and I loved the children. Yeah. I mean, I had so much, 15 years of my life.
Yes. And you mentioned earlier, I'd like for you just to kind of explain a little further, that one of those children was a friend of your son.
Yes, JR, my foster son, who is the only one that calls me dad. He and
yet I want to interject, though your stepson took your name.
This is true.
He fought to give up his father's name and have yours as his last name.
This is true.
He didn't call you dad, but he certainly made you his dad.
Amen. Yes. This is true.
That's how important you were to him, and that's, the love and care that you gave.
Yep. And again,
but anyway, go ahead. I interrupted you.
For him, dad is a bad word. He calls me Papa. Yeah. He calls me Pablo, and I love him so much as he is my son. Yes. All of my children are my children. Yeah. Just because I wasn't there to hold them when they came out, I still hold them even to this day. And they're my oldest is almost 40 now.
Wow,
it's been a long relationship.
So I interrupted. You were starting to tell the story of JR.
JR grew up in a foster home. It was actually family that raised him, and there was a moment where he didn't feel he was getting the attention that he needed as he was, 14, 15 years old, I think 14, and told his social worker that he wanted to find a new home. And it was Ventura County, and his story to me was literally the social worker said, "You're a black teenager with family ties to the black mafia," because I guess he had some family who, lived in that world. "Where am I supposed to put you?" This is the social worker saying, "I don't have nothing for you. I'm sorry, you're going to..."
Because who's going to want you?
Who's going to want you? I can't believe that.
See the seeds that are planted into black people? I just want to interject that. These are the seeds that are planted into us. Go ahead.
So he said, "Well, I would like to live with Paul and Gloria, Joey's parents." And social worker called, and Joey had already planted the seed. Joseph, my son. So we were receptive, and literally, I think I took 5 night classes at a local Catholic church, and they dropped JR off at my house after that, and he became a member of the family. And that was a joy, but also got to see life through his eyes. My 10th high school anniversary reunion, I took all the kids up to Oregon, and I was so excited to show them, and that was the most undiverse moment of my life was going to high school in Salem, Oregon. I had 2 black students in my entire high school, a large Latin contingency, and then a pretty good sized Vietnamese contingency. But the rest of the kids were just a bunch of white kids, growing up on farms and whatnot. And I remember driving up to Oregon and stopping at what I thought was, I got to take you guys to this great place for breakfast. It's where all the loggers go in Southern Oregon. I remember pancakes as big as your face. I mean, huge plates. The second I walked in there with a black son and a Latin family, the silence and the daggers and the just looking, I knew everybody was uncomfortable, especially my children. And we left. It just did not feel healthy or safe or anything. So I at that point I started to really see things through JR's eyes, as he was a young man growing up trying to find himself and his voice and trying to create for him and as for all the children, trying to repair a foundation that was a bit cracked and not and doing what I could. But yeah, it was a that really opened my eyes because I hadn't experienced something like that before. I have since, working all the years I did with Miss Winfrey and traveling the United States. I've since heard and felt up until present day. I mean, we know how messed up this country is. The heat, the hate, that's shared.
And the hate is based on nothing that's real. That's what's so, when I was a little girl growing up in the 60s, I first of all was always happy to be a colored girl. I never wanted to be anything else. But I just would go, I don't understand why a person cannot like me if they don't know me. And that hate is really not based on anything that they actually know. It's what they've been told. And the fear just takes hold. But the thing, Paul, as we were starting off in the beginning talking about being disappointed, the thing that gets me the most right now is the people who are kind and loving and compassionate and I know care about me do not understand that they're almost the most harmful of white people because they are upholding a system of racism if they won't heal their own stuff because they don't know they have stuff. But every person of color sees and hears their stuff all the time. It's important for them to be able to go in and recognize it so they can heal it, move away from it, take that seed out, plant something different. And I just don't know. I created a class and I've had people that have taken the class and they're the ones I love the most, because they really care enough to know. I don't know, so let me know. But it's the people the ones that disappoint me is the ones that keep making excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse where I can't do it now, I can't do it now, I can't do it now, I can't do it now. Well, when can you look at your stuff and stop harming my people? That's my question. What's the answer, Paul? You've lived able to see both of these worlds, Do you know what the answer is? I keep seeking the answer.
I know that if I did, I'd be set. There is that is there's a magic in that. A moment for when people, and I'm still learning, still growing. I'm not done.
Right.
I have now, with working with Angelica, immersed myself into the lives of Black trans women.
Yes.
And hearing stories and speaking of, and literally angels sent to earth, the trans community, the way that they have the bravery to stand in their own truth, no matter how much it may disrupt the quote-unquote normal.
Yes.
I'm still learning. I don't know if there is a secret to getting white folks to pay attention and wake up and get past themselves in order to embrace others. I don't know what that is. I just feel that, honestly, I think it goes, as we know, it's a history that goes back and back and back. And I know a lot of folks scream the praises of the greatest generation, but how they kind of dropped the ball in raising their children, because then we ended up with, my parents who just are comfortable and they're with their, 2.5 children and a car and having home ownership, and just never looked past that because they checked all the boxes, but also never looked up the street. Sometimes never even looked next door, because they got theirs, and that's what mattered, and that is so prevalent still. It's a. Can I say it's a laziness? Because it's a laziness. That is so. Because that is a term that I heard a lot growing up when speaking about people of color. I heard terms like lazy. I heard, and I see that more in my community than I see it in any other community. I equate sometimes to how, when you're growing up and getting things right, you get your bath temperature the way you like it, and you sit in that tub, and you are comfortable. You're comfortable, but you got to change that water. Otherwise, you keep sitting in that tub, things are going to start getting funky. Not in a good way. And things are going to stink. But you've been in it so long, you get used to the smell. And I feel like that's where my people are, sitting in a fungus-filled hot tub, thinking that everything's grand, when really they're rotten from the heart down, because that's what's soaking. It is. I don't know what it is. We try to change the temperature. We try to, give a new look, but how can you not have compassion when people are being killed? And other people stand up and say, I don't like that person's being killed just because they look like me, they walk like me, they talk like me. And then have a whole other community stand by and say, I think we're okay, right? You're okay. Let me check my fence line.
Yeah, right.
Check the temperature in my tub. Yeah, we're okay. We're okay.
Well, I did a protest, and I said some good things.
Yep. Put it on my Instagram.
Right, exactly. Send out some videos. But I think sometimes, if I look in my own world, I've been one of few Black people in white environments a lot. And I think because, I'll use myself for an example, the white people that know me or people like me, and we're friends and friendly, and I may go to your house and you might come to my house. I go to your house and you might come to my house, that you think Black people because you know me, or because there are 3 people that work in your office, or you have a neighbor that you have a chat with every now and then. And so you think you're good because you know Black people, but you don't know Black people if you don't understand our culture. And that's the thing that you dove in, and you continue. I mean, even if you're talking about the transgender female, you dig in to get to understand another culture, so that you truly have a heart and compassion and a way of being around them that is comfortable.
It is one of the joys of my job to be able to immerse myself in communities I would never be invited into if I was just walking down the street. But not just be invited in, I become immersed in finding out everything I can, because if we're going to produce some content together and make a show, I need to make sure that I have a full understanding. And where I don't understand, I need to make sure that I bring in the people that represent and understand it far better than me. So that once I have an understanding, we can now elevate it in the room, so the content can be the best it can be. But yeah, I love meeting new folks, diving in. Like I'm right now in signing Melba Wilson in Harlem. I've learned more about Harlem than I've ever learned, and just her neighborhood, just the corner that she's at, 114th. And Frederick Douglass, and the history of that neighborhood, just all of it. It is I'm lucky in that respect that I get to learn, not just by reading a book, but I get to talk to the people.
And it says a lot about you and your company that Biden chose you.
What an honor!
To explain how that all came about and what that looked like.
It was a late night phone call. Like I was done with my day, and I got a call from a dear friend of mine, Dr. Nicordoli, who runs the LGBTQ side of the AARP, and his husband Montre was a producer with us on Yana Fix My Life, as well as other projects, and is currently producing. I believe it's call it Marriage at First Sight. I think.
Yes, I've heard of that. So I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
So he runs that now. So I got a call from his husband saying, there is someone we'd like you to meet. His name is Reggie Greer, and he's a former Obama appointee who's now running the LGBTQ arm for the Biden campaign. And we think that your production company could be useful in elevating, the message. And at first I had to splash some water on my face. Because, oh my gosh, here I am, the kid from special ed that was beat up around the park and called out names, being called in to work on a presidential campaign. So I said, yes, please, thank you. And they put me right away to work, cleaning up all of their Zooms for rebroadcasts from all the conversations that they've had, from youth to so many conversations. We even did like a drag queen brunch for Biden. We had so much fun.
Oh, I love it.
And then we also produced original content. And they put me on the LGBTQ plus Biden team with about a dozen or so other people, maybe more. We'd have weekly, 3 times a week, we'd meet, phone calls, just, strategizing and how to reach out and how to do more. And then they placed me also on what they called the kitchen cabinet, which I thought was quite funny when they came up with. But I was a cabinet member for a larger community that would gather not just the social side, creating content for their sites, but just the grander scale, talking about policy and other conversations that we could bring in. So what an honor to be in that room. I look back and I get a cheeser, a big smile, because I can't believe that I got to be a part of that.
So you can talk from a perspective. Was it done because you could look at it 2 ways because it's politics? Was it done because it was a real care and concern and wanting to engage that community and understand? Or was it a political move?
For me?
For the Biden campaign.
Oh no, they care about that community. Most diverse campaign ever in the history. I mean, we for the first time had trans equality councils. We had a trans coalition. First time ever. And you see, as he's building his administration, he's brought in one of the first, I believe, someone who's going to be working on the military side of things, which was a trans woman as well. I did look at his entire cabinet, and I still have to do some more research. I mean, I'm very excited that he's in. He was not my first choice when I first did my voting, but
and neither was Kamala.
Yeah,
neither one of them were my first choice.
Nope.
But I'm very happy that they're in.
I have a feeling they'll get us to the next stop. Yes. I don't think they'll get us all the way there, but I always feel that, working or voting, the politician never gets you all the way. They get you as far as, and then we have to keep pushing. Like it was nice to do the work and get them in, but now the real work, like we cannot let up, because the shift has started, and we need to complete this turn.
The turning point, as Angelica talks about.
That's true. That's true.
Yes. And so, my belief is, and because you're closer engaged with it than I am, my belief is that they are people that we can hold accountable. I think, I've said this, I'm 69 years old. I have seen many Democratic presidents. I've seen many Republican presidents. That makes absolutely no difference at all in my life, because systemic racism, which is my top priority, is as grounded in this country as it ever has been. So how has that possibly made a difference? We have not held our politicians, federal, local, any of them, accountable in a way that we must now. We are at a turning point. We are at a new page. And I think holding them accountable is what is being called forth. And I wonder if you see this, Paul, because your eyes are so wide open. I have said, I think every podcast since then, every webinar I've done, I keep saying white people, the black people that you were looking at last year don't exist anymore. You are looking at a different black person. We are unapologetically black. We are calling out what we see. We are standing in the truth of who we really know that we are to be. And so I believe that we will be holding politicians and, our companies that we work for, our neighborhoods, our whatever, we'll be holding people accountable. And I believe that they will be able to be held accountable. I think they will be open. That is my hope and my desire. Do you have that feeling and belief also?
I do. After, because we cut so many of these conversations that were had on behalf of the campaign, and they invite people in, different leaders, different communities, all shapes and sizes, and to have people come on and speak of defunding the police, or even legalizing sex work, and to see the campaign invite those people back for continued conversation.
Yes,
to know that they have a place at the table, even though I know that the campaign is not going to run out and legalize sex work, nor are they going to defund the police. They don't, but they're open to having the conversations. And that's so much more than we've ever had, I feel.
And it will create change.
Yeah, so it will. It will. Because, the wisdom is in progress, and the progress is happening. You can't help but have progress. Although we've seen the last 4 years how, we can lose so much after gaining so much. But must be diligent, and we must be fierce in calling it out. That's one thing I hope to see more of from the white community. Is when the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, speak up. When you're at that moment of uncomfortability, if you're feeling it, the room's feeling it. Everybody's feeling it. Don't ignore it, because we're good at that. Driving on by, we rubberneck, we don't stop.
Right.
We got to learn to stop.
And oftentimes I think white people don't listen. We're at a place now, we're asking will you just listen? Stop talking for a moment and listen and hear what I'm saying, because you're talking from your same perspective, and your perspective can't shift if you don't stop and listen and engage in another perspective.
Not just listen, but retain, and there's a whole thing that has to go on with listening, where you actually let it land and stop the internal dialogue, and don't just stare at the person and nod your head. You need to receive. That's one thing I must say that I can that I would shout out to anybody listening, is to listen more.
Yes.
Because I have gained so much in my last 5 years of just not driving, being able to sit back and let other people drive, but I'm still in the vehicle, and I still want things to be, proper, but to be able to let people lead who are telling stories that represent themselves, instead of, because my first time I sat down with the executives at the Oprah Winfrey Network, it was a Zoom call. Back then, I think we called them Skypes. Yeah, right. And the first thing they said was, "Oh, you're white." And I was like, "Yeah."
Oh, that's interesting.
Sorry, or I have friends who are black. I'm like, what do you want me to say? This is the most uncomfortable.
My son's not white.
None of them.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it was, and I don't mind that if my resume speaks to that. Because that is a passion of mine, to be able to, uplift those and invite people in the living rooms who normally wouldn't be invited into a living room.
It's so funny you say that. It makes me think of how many black people have had that, like, "Oh, you're black." And then it's not necessarily that you're welcomed in. And they go, "Oh, well, okay, well, maybe you can handle this anyway." It's that, "Oh, you're black." And it stops right there,
Yep.
Yeah.
I watched a great documentary that I hopefully will be released soon. They were sending it about to get notes and whatnot, but it's literally just stories of working while black, and it was heartbreaking. Mostly older folks, who've been in it for a while and have those stories through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And even today, it's still a thing today. I'm pitching.
It is still a thing today.
I am pitching a great series that would uplift many, starring a black trans woman as your host, that kind of walks you through. And you were a part of a version of it. It's the Turning Point. Think of 60 Minutes, but hosted by a black trans woman. We have pitched it right now to 6 networks. We're still pitching. We have had meetings. The only meetings we have gotten so far is with executives who are black. Like, the rest have looked at the pitch on paper and said, "No, thank you." And it hit me today when I got the list from the agency. I was like, "Isn't this interesting?" Because as we're having this shift and people being called out, canceled, all this, there is still a great deal of lack of diversity in my business with the decision makers. That's changing as people are moving up and doing, but some of my same executives from networks have been there forever. They're still there, and they have not grown.
Right.
They do not listen.
Right.
And they talk about an industry that works solely on fear. Being a buyer for a network has got to be terrifying because, once you say yes, you put your name on it, and if it fails, you're gone.
Yeah.
That's it. But having said that, there is a cultural shift. There is an awakening happening right now. So if you don't feel the shift, or if you're still napping,
yes,
you're going to miss it. And then what? So I'm saying it now. Talk about a place that needs to wake up. My industry needs to wake up.
Well, because your industry formulates the way that people feel about situations, people, everything. They create that mindset. Yep. So, yes, absolutely.
For sure.
They need to wake up.
Wake up!
Wake up! Yes. Paul, I so appreciate you. I appreciate you taking this time. I appreciate everything about you. You are an example of just a kind and compassionate and wonderful human being in the world. Honestly, I'm bringing tears to my eyes now. I'm so grateful to know you. And again, I don't know you really, really well, but I'm going to get to know you better.
Good.
So
I can't wait.
I thank you, because you know what? We need each other. The world needs more of Paul Harrison.
We got to get through it.
Yes, we got to get through it. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
being here with
Francesca.
us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I adore you.